Mr. Brendan Hanley. How you doing today, sir?
I'm great, Joey. How are you?
Brendan, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I want to know this first before we really go anywhere. Is there something that you really love that you just need to understand more? Maybe possibly do yourself?
Through myself, I think one thing that's important to me, just in general, it's kind of probably from a business sense, but also from a personal sense, is am I always clearly listening to the needs of those around me? And I think that's kind of transferable for what we do every day in a work setting, but also just importantly, I'm a husband and father of two children, kind of what my family's needs are as well, right? So, am I listening and are my ears open?
Brendan, that is very deep and very thoughtful, probably more than I was anticipating. For me, it's simple pizza. I just need to understand how to make pizza because I like it too much. And That's kind of it. Yeah, but you have a better answer, and we'll stick with that. I want to move this over to the world of insurance and thinking about the things that you love and need to understand and want to create, and obviously the world of contractors is one of, I would say, love and hate for agents. As you know, it's a business that is very enticing, but at the same time, they run into a clientele that maybe they are not always as responsive as they might like to be. So what has your experience been dealing with that market, and how have agents had success, I guess, overall?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. In insurance, contractors is not this pretty thing that fits into a nice little box that we can all understand. It's a portion of our economy that's wide and deep. It has large variations due to size, what they're doing, complexity. So, in that sense, it's really difficult to understand what a typical insured's needs are, right? So, here at Markel, we've have a very long history of running this segment of the business, and for us, obviously, in the non-admitted channel. And what's been most interesting to me is just seeing that large variability of what the business is, and kind of learning to understand what the needs of that insured might be. It's very different from the person who they might be the owner of their business. They might have one employee, all the way up to someone who maybe has been in business 10 years and has five employees. Those needs are different, right? And understanding kind of what that dynamic looks like is probably one of the more challenging things to making sure that hopefully delivering a product that meets the needs of both those kind of pools, if you will, of exposure insured.
You talked about those needs. What do you think you guys see in terms of that needs front that might be different than what the agent might see? Is there an expectation difference there in terms of maybe something you guys have gleaned that maybe hasn't made its way down from their perspective?
I think that's it's an interesting question, and from our perspective at Markel, it's really how can we be able to provide the coverage that allows a contractor to enter a job site with coverage in hand that meets the needs of whoever they're doing work for. Maybe it's another contractor, maybe it's you or I, and we're having a project done in our homes. I think for us, it's how do we balance the need to speed to quote, right? They need something today as opposed to sitting back and having the ability to ask 25 questions over 90 days to really figure something out. I think we're getting better as an industry of kind of meeting in the middle, so to speak. And I think what we've done here at Markel is really understand that dynamic and be able to deliver a product that checks those boxes in the right fashion, no matter who the insured is and kind of what the complexity or size of their business is.
Yeah, you talk about, and that's probably one of the things that comes with the struggle of fully endearing yourself to this line of business is, what does it take to actually meet their expectations of promptness of responses? How much of that comes down to just being able to operate in a way that not only acceptable to them but profitable to the agent, and like you said, being able to do things fast enough. What is fast, I guess, like when in terms of like being able to be as responsive as possible?
Absolutely. I think the simplest definition of being quick to respond is, an insured goes to their retail agent and has a need. The retail agent, in our case, has to deal with a wholesale managing general agent to try and place that. And at the other end, you have a company like Markel, the carrier, who has a product that can quickly respond to those needs. The best example I always give is, oftentimes an insured can be a person in their pickup truck, and their office is their center console. So they need something quick that provides what they need. So we've developed a product that quickly responds to that, checks a lot of the boxes they need from a coverage standpoint. And we've really done this business for a long enough period of time where we understand, depending on what they're doing, what they really operation needs from a coverage perspective, but also, what they're doing day in, day out.
Yeah, I think there's two interesting things there. One, you talked about the coverage and maybe who that ultimate person is that might be an opportunity. From the coverage standpoint, what do you think maybe is overlooked in a policy from here or there that, maybe agents aren't looking for this particular coverage, or something that stands out that really gives them an edge potentially when it comes to, maybe sealing the deal with that contractor?
Yeah, I think, it's oftentimes as simple as, do you have additional insured endorsements or some type of coverage that is part of your GL policy that will adequately name those you're dealing with, whether it's a contractor or the individual you're performing the work for, as an additional insured GL policy, and therefore provide an opportunity for indemnification if a covered loss were to occur. I think additional insurance, everyone's like, oh, I understand that, but I think it's a very important one to figure out and understand, certainly from the retailer's perspective, and things that certainly we're kind of geared to solve for.
The other thing that sort of is sort of fun and has all sorts of nooks and crannies, just the different types of contractors that can be sort of under this term of an artisan contract. There's many different types. Is there an area where you find that agents are having maybe more success than others, where there's a decent enough sized business, the premium's good, there's fairly routine and easy servicing? Is there, I might be asking for a particular unicorn here, but is there, if we could nail a sweet spot, is there something that you have seen?
Absolutely. So I think when people hear the word contractor, they imagine someone who, maybe is doing simple carpentry work inside their house. Maybe some kind of molding or something that's decorative, or maybe it's someone that's just switching in and out doors or windows. I mean, those are simple ones to understand, right? At the other end of the spectrum, and something that we know well is, general contractors, an individual who maybe is performing some of those trades or jobs themselves, but also depending on others to do a portion of that work for them. There's a lot more complexity. You're involving other parties, and it's certainly something that's a significant occupation, if you will, within the artisan contractor space that has a lot more complexity, but one also that we're kind of geared to solve for.
Where do you think maybe agents sort of get down on the process, right? Maybe they've had a bad experience. Is there something that you could say that maybe wants to bring them back to it again, back to like the fact of maybe they were focusing on the wrong area? Is there something that you could sort of help bring them back to the fold if it is something that they have maybe shied away from over the last couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go back to my general contractor example. I think oftentimes, general contractor sounds like a pretty simple term. Wouldn't you agree? In actuality, in terms of the business they perform, no 10 can look the same. I think for that reason, it's at times, maybe due to past experiences like you talked about, it maybe shies retailers away from it being the first thing that they look to handle and take care of that's on their desk. But at the flip side of that, I think what we really excel at, and with RPS as well, is knowing that we have an expertise to solve for that problem for that retailer, having many different options depending on what's on their desk, and certainly a product that's going to respond well and hopefully change their minds in the future about their past experiences.
Let's maybe dive into the claims area a little bit in terms of like maybe when they've had problems, right? What can you maybe see to get ahead of sort of that? Where are some areas that agents maybe need to pay a little closer attention to when they're maybe looking to write the account? Some things that they could maybe do a little frontline underwriting, the things that you like to take a look for, just to maybe give themselves a better chance, getting everything through.
No, absolutely. Sometimes it's as simple as understanding the guidelines for a class of business and does it correspond. I think partnering with folks like us makes it very simple. I think kind of the value chain, the value proposition, right, is how that claim is handled. With Markel as an example, it's in-house claims adjusters, it's in-house coverage counsel, it's prompt resolution teams ready to respond quickly when an insured has a covered loss. These are absolutely things I think maybe at times are maybe not thought of as highly important as they should be, when a policy is sold, if you will. But they're absolutely things that are important to the insured and making sure that their needs are met when they go through a tough time and a claim occurs.
Maybe walk me through that claims process a little bit. Are there areas where you find maybe more problems, or areas that are something that you kind of see over and over again that agents maybe aren't paying attention to?
I think just some things that I've seen in my kind of work history is and one of the common ones and themes is probably misclassification of business. So perhaps at one period in time, an insured is doing kind of one job, one trade, if you will, And over time, their business evolved like all businesses do. It's very important to make sure that we're staying up to date, in the complete value chain, right? Insured to retailer to wholesaler to carrier, understanding what that insurance business looks like at that date and time of renewal. So staying on top of that is extremely important, so that business isn't misclassified. That makes sure that the insured has coverage that best corresponds to the work that they're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can imagine that that's something that, again, back to the entire conversation we've had around contractors, and that's something that can be a struggle. I mean, the easy recommendation would be just to make sure that you're kind of having that touch base every year at renewal to make sure that they are in the same line of business. Is there any other suggestions that you've seen in terms of keeping up to date with that stuff? If a contractor is sort of in and out of something periodically, is there any way to prevent themselves or sort of protect themselves as they sort of move in and out of business, sort of trades, if you will?
There's always the option of making sure that you're kind of encompassing all the things they are doing today, maybe that they've done in the past. That's kind of the belt and suspenders approach, if you will, of making sure you're capturing all of that. It's paying attention to loss runs. Those can be kind of illuminated in a lot of ways. It can be also as simple as having completely filled out supplemental applications, which everyone knows what an accord form is, and kind of the more simplistic information that it captures, and that's absolutely important. A supplemental application asks more questions. Those questions are important, right? That's important to all of us, to helps us best understand, and at the end of the day, get the best price for coverage that you possibly can for that insured.
And you brought up supplementals, and you mentioned them a little bit before. For an agent that maybe dabbles a commercial here and there, it's not something that they do often, but they want to maybe dip their toe a little bit more. Contractors is generally an easy place to start. Is there anything that you could say to reassure them or just sort of ease their mind in terms of dealing with the supplementals with an accord form? Because a lot of this stuff can be overwhelming for the folks that don't do it every day.
It can be, and if you think about it, every carrier can have a different supplemental application. I think the good news is, by and large, as an industry, we ask mostly the same questions. There's always nuance here or there. I think the retailer should understand that just because they have a supplemental application doesn't apply to maybe the carrier they at the end of the day could possibly be working with. At least in the initial phases, that's certainly acceptable, and just making sure that you're capturing that information. And over time, I think what that retailer will learn how to do best as well is, maybe there's questions that they want to know that could be further helpful in the value chain.
Now, is there something that maybe this is pie in the sky for you, but I'm going to give you the opportunity, Brent. Is there something that you feel, just from your perspective, that just communicating down to the agent base? Because it's always like, we want to know, the agents want to know what carriers want, and carriers want to know what agents sort of want to do. Is there something that you've always, is there sort of this little mantra that you repeat to yourself, just sort of this information that you wish was sort of more connected between the two parties, as we're so dependent on each other?
Absolutely. I think it's as simple as what's your goal, and stating those goals clearly, and not leaving your partners guessing at those goals. Especially today, kind of thinking about the whole insurance market as a whole. We're all busy, right? We all have ourselves pulled in many different directions. I think doing your best to provide every piece of information you can up front is only going to make the whole process smoother and will happen more quickly for the retailer, when they're trying to place, renew, et cetera, piece of business.
Would you have one sort of tip to level up their ability to sort of approach contractors, to sort of maybe have a better, chance, maybe just something from an efficiency standpoint? Is there one tip that stands out to you of all the contractors that you've sort of seen come through Markel that you would maybe say, this is my one tip for you guys to really, I guess, level up, if you will?
This will sound funny. You may agree or disagree, but today, with information being available in so many different places, and certainly on the internet, Google your insured. Oftentimes, you can learn a lot about someone's business by how they're advertising their services online. That's always immensely powerful to me in my career and underwriting career. I think it absolutely can be valuable to retail partners as well.
All right, Brendan, I've got 3 more questions for you, sir.
Okay.
And the first one is, what's one thing you hope you never forget?
One thing I never forget, this maybe doesn't have the direct correspond to insurance, but I never want to forget to always have a sense of humor about how we work together in the industry, working with our wholesale partners like RPS, always having a sense of humor day to day, and and trying to lift each other up through that is something I never want to forget.
Now, on the other side of that, Brendan, what's one thing you still have yet to learn?
I'd love to tell you that I know everything, but obviously I don't. I think anyone that says that would not exactly be telling you 100% of the truth. I think from where I sit on the carrier side as part of the transaction in the insurance industry, I think it's kind of better understanding what our insured's needs are in the future. That's something we all prognosticate on, whether it's a retailer or a wholesaler or a carrier like Markel. I think it's always striving over time you won't learn it all, but you hopefully learn something new every year.
Last question to you, sir. If I were to hand you a magic wand of sorts to reshape, change, alter, speed up, really any part of insurance, what's that thing? Where is it going? And what's it doing?
So my magic wand in this example would be, how can we better collect and correlate information that passes up and down from who needs risk transfer to who's willing to accept that risk transfer, and how can we improve efficiency? I think we're making huge strides, right? And what we're doing with RPS is an example of that. It's certainly not the silver bullet, if you will, and there's more we can do in the future. So if I could wave my magic wand to solve for that more quickly, that would be great. I'm also a realist, though.
Brendan, this has been fantastic, sir. I'm going to leave it right there.
Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate the time.